Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you? Good?
Well,
Hi, Danielle. Welcome to have you in Toronto for the first time.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I truly am. And why don't we take a little bit of time, just about 30 seconds, go around so you can introduce yourself and say who you are and why are you here? Andrea, do you want to start?
I'll start. Hello, my name is Andreia. I have been invited to participate in the 6th anniversary of the TSS, and I'm so pleased to be here. I'm so thankful. I am from Miami, Florida, and I am from the Conscious Living Spiritist group, and I also volunteer full-time at ADC of America, which is a Spiritist publishing company, and also layout publisher representing the books published and channeled by Divaldo Pereira Franco.
Wow, we should talk about that in the next episode of the Spiritist Conversations. That's a conversation
I'm
in
happy
itself.
to be here. Thank you.
Well, I would say diddle, but only changing my name. Marcello Neto from Florida.
So here's my question for you. Is it Marcello Neto or Marcello Neto?
Neto. It's very Latin.
It's your name you choose.
That's right. Just exactly. It depends. So I'm just like Andrea. I volunteer at Conscious Living Spiritist Group. I'm here for the celebration of the 6th anniversary of Toronto Spiritist Society. And we are very glad to be here. It's a wonderful. That couple is fantastic. They run the Toronto Spiritist Society, and the folks that we're going to meet tomorrow are simply wonderful. I'm very glad to be here.
Great, and we saved the best for last, the moosies.
Moosies.
So who wants to go first, Sandra or Joe?
I'll go first. Let Sandra be the last one.
Okay.
Name José Mussi, also known as Joe Mussi, originally from Brazil, born in Rio, but we've been living here in Canada for 26 years now. And for the past 6, we've had the privilege to found and to operate the Toronto Spiritist Society. It is a unique Spiritist center here in Toronto that it is exclusively run in English. Even though a lot of our members are Brazilian or Portuguese, we have taken the effort and the dedication to do all of our activities in English, because we feel that is a fundamental obligation of a Spiritist that come from Brazil and are welcome into a new country to embrace the society, embrace the culture, and above all, embrace the language, because we really want to be the seeders of the future of Spiritism in this country.
Great words. Something that we can obviously talk a lot about. So thank you, Joe. And who is it that is sitting at your right side now? This good-looking, kind, elegant, and smiley woman, also known as your better half.
My best half, Sandra.
Oh, so cute. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's I couldn't have chosen better people than the three of you. We are feel so blessed to have the three of you here with us. Each one of you have a light of its own, and this light is something that we are so grateful that you brought here to Canada to shine your light on us. So we are very, very happy, and we feel very blessed and fortunate to have you here with us.
These are great and kind words, but tell us, Sandra,
Yes.
how are you involved with TSS? That's great deflection right there. Way to go.
I know. I'm involved we founded the TSS 6 years ago. Before that, I was part of the Joana de Angelis Spirits group here in Toronto. I was there for 16 years before we founded the TSS. And the main reason that I left was that we felt that we had a need to do the work, the Spiritism in English, totally in English. And Joana de Angelis was still done in Portuguese. Some of the work they do in English too, but we didn't want to have any work in Portuguese at all, because we felt that this was the push that we had to really found that group. So I feel that we are doing a good job. It's not easy. to do this, but we are doing it. And it's been 6 years now, so we feel grateful to have this group and these people with us.
Well, I guess we can say that we're all very excited to be here. It's actually my second time in Canada. I love Canada, even though I've only been here 2 times. But it's really fantastic. So this is also a great opportunity for us who are coming and visiting, even though we're not that far away, to get to learn a little bit more about not only the group, but also a little bit of a history of Spiritism here in Canada. Before we jump into the Toronto Spiritist Society, which we all want to know probably more about, right? Can you guys share a little bit with us? How is it that you guys came to Canada and got involved in Spiritism, and how Spiritism was at the time?
Well, let's start with the Fox sisters.
Hold on, let me check to see if I have enough memory.
There is a little known secret that the Fox family lived in Canada.
Oh.
And because at the time, in the 19th century, the borders between Canada and US around Buffalo in this region here was very fluid. And families often had farms and they moved back and forth. And the Fox family was one of those. So they lived in Canada, what is now Canada.
Kingston.
No, much closer to Buffalo. So it's St. Catherine area. They were very close. And eventually they moved to the city that eventually became the phenomenon of the Fox sisters. So we won't go into a lot of detail, but it's the very beginning of spiritualism in North America, and eventually that migrated to Europe, where Spiritism then was created, was born.
After that, we had a British man that came to Canada, and he not only came to Toronto, but he also went to Montreal and to Vancouver, and he was spreading spiritualism. Not Spiritism, but he already had a lot of knowledge on Spiritism. And that gentleman, everybody is very well known. He's Arthur Conan Doyle. He came to Canada and he was giving speeches and he was, I'm sorry?
Lectures.
Lectures, yes, lectures on spiritualism and the afterlife and everything. So he was the person who brought this to Canada too.
That's a significant figure, Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. Who has
show-off.
not heard of Sherlock Holmes?
Sherlock Holmes, exactly.
Now, the modern Spiritism in Canada was born late 1980s, early 1990s, first in the city of Montreal.
Yeah, actually it was
With
in
the
the
first-
70s.
Well, first Spiritist group. And the first one in Toronto was the Joanna de Angelis Spiritist
Yeah.
Study Group.
The first one, yeah.
The first
Yeah.
one, and that would have been 1992.
Oh gosh.
And for those of us who are listening and probably never heard the name before, who is Joanna de Angelis? Andreia, who's Joanna de Angelis?
She is, first and foremost, she's Divaldo Franco, the outstanding world-renowned medium's mentoring guide. She has dictated countless books to him, but we can go back in history and find out a little bit more about her in the early times of Christ and the presence of Joanna de Cusa. But for us, Spiritists, she is a motherly figure that brings a lot of enlightenment, not only in the psychological aspect that Spiritism brings in a transpersonal psychology, but also a very devoted and motherly and loving spirit that is here to guide us and instruct us. That's my take on it.
That's awesome because, if you're not familiar with this, you might find that a lot of our groups or centers have these names that you might never ever have heard.
That's right.
Like Joanna de Angelis or Francis Xavier or Allan Kardec. And we can talk about all of those too. But sorry, where were we before I rudely interrupted Joe?
Well, in
We're
92,
we're in
Joanna
the
de Angelis.
1990s now, and very similar to what has happened in other countries, Spiritism comes to Canada in this new modern age through Brazilians, expats living in Toronto. Some of them Spiritists who practice Spiritism in Brazil, when they come to a new country and they want to continue to practice Spiritism, so they eventually set up small groups, sometimes home centers or home study groups. And Joanna de Angelis started very small and has continued to operate continuously since that time.
Great. And so you guys came, when did you guys come to Canada? How did
First time, 1983. Actually, yes, 1983. We came to Waterloo, the University of Waterloo, when Joe did his master's degree. I wasn't a Spiritist back then. I was very Catholic. And then we came back to Brazil after he finished his degree. And then when my father was Jewish, was Polish Jewish, and my mom very, very Catholic. And after my father discarnated, this is when I couldn't find consolation into the Catholic Church. No priest would console myself and my spirit. So I was in a turmoil. And I went to Comunhão Espírita de Brasília, which is it's a big Spiritist group in Brasília. And this is where I found consolation. For the first time, I heard about that our souls we are immortal spirits. So this is when I finally, everything came into place. It was like click, 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 click. And I was
How was it again?
It was just beautiful. And this is when I became a Spiritist. So when we came back to Canada again for the second time as immigrants, we had I came back as a Spiritist, not as a Catholic. So
Was that in 91?
1990.
1990, because I arrived in 91, so it's interesting to see like all the friendly folks migrating to the North American. Sorry, interrupting.
Or so you say.
Or so I say.
Yeah.
So this is when I came here, and then we brought our furniture and everything, a container to Canada, and I remember I had at least 5 boxes, big boxes of books, because one thing that I didn't want to leave Brazil is that I finally found something that it made sense in my life, so I brought the books with me, and it was, I just didn't want to let that go. So it's interesting.
And apparently you haven't.
No.
Right. We're sitting here today in part because of that.
Yeah.
And how did the Toronto Spirit Society start? How did it? What did you guys just decide? Okay, we're going to do this. Because so one of the things that's always interesting to see, because I think everybody here in the table has a little bit of an experience with this, is spirit societies. They're all run by volunteers. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that's fully paid or works with this. Spiritist labor is always a labor of love. It's always a volunteer thing, which is actually a conversation in itself. We should probably talk about why that is. But the idea is that we don't want to get entrenched in this and kind of create hierarchies and things that might detract from the peer sharing of information. But so it's a lot of work, because it's like work on top of your work.
Yes.
If you make a living working, right?
Yes.
So how was it to build what we affectionately call TSS?
In 2010, when Sandra had just left the Joana de Angelis Spiritist Society, Spiritist Studies Group, and I was there just for 2 years. I've only been a Spiritist for about 8 years in this life. And
in this life, you never know.
You never know.
But the odds are probably good.
And it was interesting, we had about 4 or 5 couples. That's what was interesting, because they were all couples who were looking for something a bit different in terms of studying Spiritism in English. And at the time, I had the advantage or the luxury of having a rented space for my firm that we had organized for a project. The project was done, and we still had the rental. So we decided to use the place just to get ourselves started. And really all it was once a week we would get together and we would have a lecture. It was exclusively in English. And through word of mouth, it started to grow. To the point that, and this actually was not 6 years ago, this was really 7 years ago when we kind of started. We ran there for about a year, a little bit over a year, and the space just got too small for us.
It's outstanding.
And
That's
then
a
we
good
had to
problem to have.
find a place, and as many Spiritist centers in North America find, we found a basement. Because that's what we can afford in terms of a small group. And we've grown from those 4 or 5 couples, and today we have 40 kind of stable members in the group.
Yeah.
And we often get, upwards of 50 to 60 people coming to some of the more interesting lectures.
That is awesome. And in 6 years later, after your official foundation, you guys are putting up this event. Is that something that you do every year? How does that work?
This is our first event, like the
This anniversary, the
symposium.
symposium.
We never had an event like that. We had Givaldo came, Haroldo Dutra Dias came, we had Marta Antunes, we had Miriam Mazzotti Duzzi, we had Andrei Moreira.
Cheesing.
Yeah, we had a lot of people that would come for one lecture and then they would leave, so for an hour. But this is the first time that we decided to do a symposium. We were like thinking about this for a while, but we felt that this year we are ready, so let's do it. And the 3 of you just came as I think this is a work that is not done. We deciding. I think we've decided this maybe, in a different setting. But
Somebody
anyway,
else decided for us.
somebody else decided because it was just something that was just so natural. Oh yeah, yes, okay, there you go, it's done. And then we talked to you, and you graciously accepted to come. So everything worked in a way that is, it's amazing. Everything worked naturally, and we are so happy.
And well, actually, we're the ones who are happy. We're sitting in your living room right now. It's your beautiful home, drinking your soda and talking. So we are the ones that have to thank you for this. But before we dive into this year's topic, let's take a quick break for our sponsors, which it's the running joke in the program because we have no sponsors, people. This is us with a couple of microphones and some shy people at first, and then we get going. But we'll be right back.
Hello, dear friends. If you're here listening to the Spiritist Conversations podcast, you already know that we live forever. However, do you also know that there is a Spiritist radio on the internet for our listening pleasure and the nourishment of our souls? This is Kardec Radio, and we have a wide range of shows, from live interviews to shows for teens and kids. We even have a show about Spiritist books. Every Wednesday, Mackenzie and Francisca read a book chapter, followed by a discussion about its teachings. It is always eye-opening. Do you want to know more? KardecRadio.com. Visit us. Share the love. Nourish your soul.
And we're back. You probably just heard our lovely messages from our many sponsors in this very expensive podcast that we have. And as you know, we are here trying to have just a simple conversation with folks. Just having just to have the opportunity to talk and listen and share experiences. And we would love for you to be part of this conversation. If you're on Twitter, use hashtag SCONVOs, SConvos for Spirit Conversations, or write us at conversations@spiritism.org. Ask your questions, give us topics, give suggestions. Tell us what is it that you like, what is it that you do not like about this program. Because, to be frank with you, the 5 of you who listen to us are probably very important to us because there's not a lot of people listening to us.
It's like the 5 of us that were sitting here on the table. It's like, okay.
True. I think maybe we just picked up another listener. That's how we pick up listeners on this podcast. We interview people and then they want to listen to hear themselves. And then, hey, we have 6 people now. But all jokes aside, this is an unscripted, really, conversation. There is no ulterior motive here other than getting to know people. But we were just talking about TSS, the Toronto Spiritist Society, which, by the way, has a very lovely logo, I think. Very beautiful. And what's your guys' website again?
Oh,
It's www.torontospiritidsociety.org.
Oh, how creative,
I know.
right?
It's very good. I need to say something though, because I've been like dying and holding myself because I'm here in the conversation. I just want to jump in, and that's not something that I do all the time, right, Daniel?
No,
I'm
you
very
never- you
shy.
never jump
yeah,
into the
I don't
conversation.
ever interrupt.
So I want to give you permission to talk
Yes,
whenever you want to, okay, Andrea?
I gotta congratulate the TSS because first and foremost, we love them, right? We do. We have like this affinity, even though we're in Florida. We're
Is
not allowed
it a
to say
thing now that
right?
we're calling them the TSS?
I
That we're
like
just,
the TSS.
The TSS.
The TSS. You know, the TSS.
The TSS.
I gotta congratulate them because a lot of Spiritist groups, when they begin, first and foremost, they do have the challenges and the difficulties of the language. So having the courage to establish the work all in English is like plus. But then they come out with the coolest youth activity on the web, on Facebook, which is this little girl, Olivia, and she's got a broadcasting news, and she's talking about...
I didn't know that. I did not know about that.
Spiritist for the youth.
Oh, that was wonderful, yeah.
She first of all, this girl is made for that.
What's her name?
Livia.
Yeah.
Barros.
Livia Barros, Michelle and Marcos de Clay's daughter.
Yeah.
And she is so lively and she's so excited and she's bringing all of this. And I thought, my God, we have a preteen, right? Just preteen.
Yeah.
And pretty soon I can see the network between them, because today we have to use what Haroldo referred as the power of the Spirit, mentioned by Paul of Tarsus, as utilizing the resources we have available to disseminate a Spiritist body of knowledge. Poof! And then we have a preteen utilizing this power, this tool, to be able to connect, hopefully, with other teens and talk about everyday topic for teens, like drugs and abortion and death and things that we didn't really have anybody to talk to. So I'm excited for the TSS for having developed this work. Maybe you want to talk about that, yeah.
Great. And so one of the things I think is happening tomorrow is that we are having a gathering here at the Moosey's.
Yes.
At the Moosey's.
At the Moosey's. And is she going to be here?
Yeah.
Maybe we should interview her.
We should.
Absolutely.
Maybe we should ask her
That's
about
like the
that.
first time, right? A preteen on your
Yeah,
conversations.
absolutely. I mean, we've
There
had
you
only
go.
4 conversations, so yeah, it's going to be a first for everything. But so that's pretty exciting.
Isn't it exciting?
Yeah, I didn't know that. So where did she put that on Facebook? Is that what it is?
Yes, it is on the TSS Facebook, and it's on our website too. Oh, I think it's just Facebook.
This Facebook.
So we just have to search for the Toronto
And the
Spiritist
logo,
Society.
the logo is beautiful.
It's a butterfly,
Very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I like the logo.
And TSS, I mean, it means like the day so special. Something like that. They miss simply the
The Spiritists.
We were inspired by Allan Kardec, which was the
Parisian.
Parisian Spirit Society. So we decided not to go with names, because if we wanted to do this for a country, the names doesn't mean anything to a Canadian, right?
So true.
So Allan Kardec means nothing to them. Chico Xavier means nothing to them.
So I
Joana
was
de
gonna
Angelis.
ask you if you guys want to change the name to the group to Daniel Spirit Society. So that's not happening.
No, it's not going to
think
happen
so.
probably yet. Maybe
Well, it depends
next life.
how popular your blog gets.
Yes.
Oh my God! I have a blog. I forgot to tell. I forgot people. You guys should
A word
later.
from our
go with-
sponsor.
Yeah, I should sponsor.
You should
I should sponsor.
sponsor
Yeah,
You should sponsor.
maybe I should spend some money and sponsor this podcast. What would we spend the money on? I don't know. Maybe some more, because we here in our Toronto studio, like we said before, which happens to be the Moosey's house. Because this is really a low-budget podcast. It's just a bunch of people talking. It's not even a show. It's just a bunch of people talking. But this is really, really great, right? So we heard a couple of great things. One was creating a new group and do it in English, which is always hard, right? Because to be honest with you, like a lot of Spiritist groups in the United States are mainly done by Brazilians, and it's only normal that they will feel comfortable speaking in their own language.
Right.
And I know, I do too. Like I'm comfortable speaking, in Portuguese. But there's other folks who don't speak Portuguese. There are folks from all over the world, as a matter of fact, who are here somehow. And it's nice for them to have a chance to speak in English, right? And the event tomorrow is another chance that if you're around in the Toronto area, but I think it's going to be recorded as well.
It
Right.
is.
More than that, one of the things that we have to understand about Canada is that we have few Brazilians in a very large country, right? So we have small pockets of Spiritists. And often we get requests from people who live 2-3 hours away who can't come on a regular basis to the center. So we made a very early decision
You broadcast.
to broadcast all of our studies and lectures online.
Through
So before
Fabby
we
TV.
were using one of these websites that provide webcasting. We then got permission to use Fab TV, and we continue to do that on our Sunday lectures. And more recently, with the new feature in Facebook, we're doing both the Sunday lectures and the Wednesdays and Thursdays studies online on Facebook.
That is great. Yeah.
So we have people who log in from different places, some not too far, others farther away, and even some people from Brazil who want to see how Spiritism is in English.
Yeah.
And what is Feb TV?
Fab TV used to be called Say TV. It was started by
TV say, yeah.
TV
TV
Say, right?
TVCEI, TVC.
Yes.
Oh, it's no longer, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
No, it's not Fab TV. The Brazilian Spiritist Federation, or Federação Espírita Brasileira, FEB, has invested quite a lot of money actually to create a broadcasting infrastructure, even making use of satellites to broadcast Spiritism across Brazil. And they also have internet capability. They branded the FEB TV, Fab TV. So there are channels that you know, if you get the permissions, you can broadcast. And we have, I think channel 8 is available to us.
I'm not sure. I think it's 7.
And it's accessible at any time. And now with the Facebook, it has advantages because we can keep those lectures recorded so people can see the studies, can see the lectures at any time.
Yeah, and also remember that Canada, there are 3 or 4 months of the year that we have very heavy snow. So to go to this center, it can be a challenge sometimes. So people can still be part of the study or the lecture without leaving their home. So this was a necessity from day one. So we always said that this is something that it's a must. You know, we can't not have that. So
And we have members who live an hour and a half away from the center,
yeah.
who come 2-3 times a week to the center, and often in the winter it could be a challenge.
So like on the Facebook Live option, do you guys allow for questions to be asked?
yes,
and then you answer
absolutely.
You can
live?
make comments like you do
that's
with
cool.
Facebook.
So you really
Interactive.
participate in it,
Yes,
it's interactive,
yes,
which
you
is
do.
really neat.
Interesting.
You know?
And sometimes they even bring questions, or they even bring suggestions and comments on the study that we never thought about it. So you know, it's really enriching to everybody. It's really good.
Really good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's really great to see the interaction piece too. And you guys were talking about it, and because I live in California, it just didn't dawn on me. But the access piece for you during winter and all that kind of fun stuff, it's very different. So it makes a lot more sense to have that capability enabled so that if you can't make it all the way, and if you want to join over the web, you can see all the lectures.
And the reality is life is complicated. People are very busy. Our work takes us into late hours working in some places. You have obligations with your children, with your spouse. So sometimes you can't commit to the regular schedule that we need to commit. So in this case, it gives them an option to listen in the car, listen at home at any time that it may be.
And do all the lectures get stored as well, so you can go back? You don't have to be there
Now
live.
with the Facebook, we can have that.
Yeah. And before it was at our site. It was all recorded.
There was
news.
links to, we were using YouTube as well. So
Yeah.
we record everything and put it in the YouTube site.
And since we're talking about it, what are the activities? What are the days?
We have.
In case one of those 6 listeners that we have may be Canadian and may live near
So
Toronto.
Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have our study nights. So we begin the work around 5:30, where we have the fraternal meetings. We provide not counseling, but conversations with people who come for comfort, for questions. We often ask our volunteers to come every so often to be able to, share some of their frustrations or their questions. And at 7 o'clock, then we start the studies of the basic Spiritist book, all
Kardec's.
the Kardec, 5 basic works. So at this time, until very recently, we were running these study groups. Wednesdays, we were doing the Gospel according to Spiritism and the Spirit's book. Thursdays, we also do the Spirit's book, and we've been going very carefully through Genesis. We stopped the regular study because during the summer, because a lot of people go on vacation. What we do is we do a book club. In fact, we pick a book by Chico Xavier in English, and we go and read the book through the 2 months of summer. And right now, we're going through and studying the book Liberation.
Yeah. So the TSS, what we only have the books of Kardec and Chico Xavier. And I think, and Givaldo. And I think if you have those 3, Chico, Givaldo collections, you already have too many for a lifetime. It's a lot of material. So we try not to, to go through all the different writers. We know there's a lot of good ones out there, but we just decided to focus on Kardec's book. Genesis is the last one. Last year we finished Heaven and Hell, and we're doing the Gospel and the Spirit's book. It's an ongoing study. It never stops, never ends. So when we finish, we start it again, both books. And the Genesis, the Medium's book, and the Heaven and Hell, we just go, when we finish, we started the other one. And then we do the Andrea Luiz series, which is all the books for Andrea Luiz. And this year we are doing the 6th one, which is Liberation. And usually it's the volunteers or even the members or the people who choose the books. We put it up for them, and then, we have a vote, and then they vote for the books. And this year they voted for Liberation.
And we're so thankful that Edisei is translating these books to English.
Don't tell me. And this is something that I want to mention too, because when I started to do the work in English at Joana de Angelis, my old spirit center, Jo actually had to help me translate a lot of books that were not translated. So I will be forever grateful to Nestor Mazzotti, who brought these books. He put so much effort. He put so much his own DNA and his prints into doing this. That I will be forever grateful to him, and to, of course, to Edisei, and now to Andreia and Marcello, who continuously doing this job that is so important.
Very important, and we should make another Spiritist conversations about that. And for those of you who may be unaware, Nestor Mazzotti is the former president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, who passed away recently, and who also dedicated a lot of time into making sure that we could translate many of the Spiritist books who were in Portuguese to English. But you know what? We should probably not talk about these translations, because we're going to make another Spiritist conversation episode with this. I think, hopefully, right, people?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. See, this is a benefit.
So you have to
right?
come back here.
So when we get the
We will.
we put a microphone in front of them and say, we're going to do this, right? They have to say yes, right? So that's how we actually get new episodes for the Spiritist conversation.
We miss Nestor
And today the
Mazzotti.
focus is TSS. Yeah?
TSS.
They so special. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's really
So
interesting.
we have the studies, and then we have, of course, we have the kids, the children's education, Spiritism education.
We actually have 3
We have
activities.
3, yeah. We have the toddlers, babies and toddlers. It's based on a work that was done by the Spirits Federation of Goiás, Sandra Borba, and the Brazilian Spirits Federation. So this is all the work. And then we have the for the children from age 4 to 10, right?
Yeah.
10 years old. And then from 10 to 15 is the new program that we just started this month.
Awesome. And are you guys the only Spiritist group here in Toronto? Or are there more groups?
No. We are
One of four.
One of four. We have the Rest on the Way. We have the Joana de Angelis.
When you say you have the rest on the way, do you mean are they all on the way to TSS, or that's actually the name of the group?
That's the name of the group.
Or like they are going to be created? What do you mean by the?
I'm so
Is that-
sorry.
Say the
I know,
full name.
because yeah, we have a group that is called Rest on the Way.
Got it. Thank you.
There is another group that is called Joana de Angelis Study Group. And there's another one that is Christian Spirit Center. This is a more, it's how do you call
A
it?
home group, home study group.
Home study group. But they've been, like, we've known them. They've been a long time doing this. And then we have TSS.
How many groups do we have in Canada altogether?
We think we're up to about 12
12.
now.
12 groups.
So not a lot for a very large country.
No.
And that's why the virtualization is so crucial.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you guys are covered in ice.
We're
But
not.
when you
There's
consider,
no ice outside.
because you
It's
said
summer.
that
It's beautiful.
if a lot of the Spiritist centers are created from Brazilians that migrate to a certain country, and there's so few Brazilians per se, I can understand the low number.
Yeah.
But I guess the virtualization and the more you apply, and because it's fair to say, a lot of Brazilians are fearful of taking a book like Liberation and doing a public talk on it when it's the same in Portuguese, right? So there's kind of like this resistance in disseminating a message in English. And the more you guys focus on doing this, the more other groups will open up. And that doesn't have to be by Brazilians, right? Canadians, Americans, as in North America and so on.
I think as Spiritists in Brazil, we don't necessarily appreciate how much information we get over several years to make us understand the Spiritist doctrine. And when we come to another country and we start talking to people who have never been exposed to any of that, we sometimes find it very difficult to know where to start.
Yeah, the context is missing, right?
Yes.
We oftentimes have had the benefit of growing up and talking about life after death, reincarnation, mediumship.
Right.
And sometimes we find ourselves having to go back and explain, which I think is also a very good learning tool for ourselves because it makes us reevaluate that which we know and think about how is it that I should explain this to somebody who might not be familiar or was not exposed to this as I was. It's a great learning tool for ourselves. We go back to the basics and say, okay, let me share with you what I know, right? Which
So how
came
can
from
you,
these
for
books.
example, study liberation without talking about Nosso Lar?
Yeah, it's hard. You have to go back to
You
the.
have to have, yeah. you have
Otherwise,
to
it's
have
science
basics.
fiction. Like it sounds
Yes.
like science fiction.
Sounds.
right?
Actually,
Yeah.
this week was so interesting because Joe was he was explaining, like, we were in the chapter 5, right, Joe, of liberation, and Joe was like, this brings me to almost Game of Thrones.
That's a
funny.
first.
That's a
Liberation and Game of Thrones put together in the same sentence. I like it.
We had something in common this week. Joe and Sandra here in Toronto, and Marcello and I in Florida, in Miami, where we both watched in the same week the movie Defending Your Life,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I'm watching that movie, and I'm like, my God, it's like the
Not so
things
loud.
and not so loud, and they're talking about all these things, and we start seeing similarities. But one of the things that I think it's important for us to talk about here is as pioneers of Spiritism in Canada or in America, we have to be very careful because I think Daniel and Marcelo and I have talked about this in the past, how we come and we open a Spiritist group and we feel that either the Americans or the Canadians don't know anything and they have nothing to add, and we're here to disseminate this new body of knowledge. And sometimes people get discouraged because we have this position where we're not humble enough to realize that we're talking to a spirit, an immortal one. And sometimes they have a lot more knowledge than we do, right? So opening a space where their space is theirs. It's not Brazilians coming to Canada or to Florida. It's spirits that are coming to start a new study of a new body of knowledge where people from that land that we have chosen know as much as we do or even more. And I think this is why there's like so many people that are shy to participate in the groups because they don't feel a safe space, right? There's like a judgmental stance that we know more than they do.
Yeah, that's just kind of normal because whenever there's human beings, right, there's ego involved.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the reasons why we were talking about volunteer work before. It's one of the reasons why we don't have like priests or bosses in Spiritism because we try to shy away from that. Our understanding is that It's easy for us to fall into that. We fall into that in our daily lives every day. And so we try to keep it all volunteer without any hierarchy so that we can have conversations with each other and learn from each other, especially for that very reason, right? Mm-hmm. We have the beautiful passage in the Gospels explained by Spiritism that we all know, right? Love one another and teach one another. And that's a great exercise for us, which is something that we don't see in our daily lives, right? Because in our daily lives, traditionally, professionally, we are thought to compete with each other, and sometimes to the detriment of the other person. Like, I'll do whatever it is that I need to do to get ahead, right? Mm-hmm. From you. I'll step on you to do it. And we hope that practice will change with time. So it's always very great to see that. And that's why it's great to do this in a different language, because you put yourself in a learning position again. It forces you to go back and reevaluate what you know, and you learn a lot. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I can say I learn a lot by going back to say, how do I say this? How would I, explain this concept of like pair spirit, which is a fundamental one for us in Spiritism to understand how the physical body connects to our spirit and so forth. Maybe another topic for Spiritist conversations. But so it's really great, right? And so having this, it's a labor of love. And I'm sure you've put a lot of hours into this, because it always takes.
But we don't even feel, because everything that we do, it's almost like it becomes so natural that you don't feel that this is one more thing that you have to do. It just becomes a part of something that you have, you just do it. You don't even question, do I have to go to my spirit center? Mm-hmm. It's raining or it's snowing. I just go, it's just something that I go. And if I don't feel well, or if I don't feel, and this is when the days that I really have to make myself go. Because there are days that I don't feel, I don't think I'm going to go today. I'm not feeling well. Okay, this is the day that I need to go.
It makes a lot of difference, when you go there. It shows, like, even if like not feeling well, and everything conspire for you not to be there, and you make an effort to be there. Once you're there, it changes completely. Everything. That's right.
And one thing about Canada is that diversity here is huge, right? Canada is a country of immigrants from all over. Not only people are coming from different countries, but they also bring their different religions. So Spiritism, in a way, it's very natural, because it's one new way of seeing God, perceiving God or explaining our own life. So it's interesting that before, people were trying to use science, because this is Canada, let's try to bring science, the scientific view of Spiritism into, maybe this is going to make more sense for the Canadians. And we feel quite the opposite. We feel that we need to bring the religion side of Spiritism to Canadians.
So no science for Canadians.
TSS.
No, what you have to understand, and we come from Brazil, and we come with our own prejudice. We come here, a lot of us, thinking the North Americans are very materialistic, that all they're looking for is money, for stuff, buying stuff, and there's a truth to that. There's a tremendous drive to consume physical goods, to have enjoyment, have free time, to entertain oneself. We have too many options. But the reality is that North Americans are so very charitable. Charity is part of the very fabric that created these countries. What we do find is that most, without having to generalize too much, we have different types of groups here. So we have those who have their religion and are very comfortable with it and are not looking to change. And then we have a growing number of skeptics who have a great resistance to organized religion.
And I think that's the key, Joe. I keep harping about that. I think there's a fundamental difference between religion and organized religion. Right, and I think that most of us who are not familiar or haven't really been engaged in spirituality or whatever, what have you, we think that organized religion is religion. We don't know anything else, right? We think that that's that group of people with those rules, whether they make sense or not. And that's what religion means. And I think the religion is an individual thing. It's like what you do with your God, your own way of looking at the world. Organized religion is when men get together and they decide, hey, here's the rules we're going to create. And then over time, we might not even remember why we created those, right? Or it ends up being weird. And then you have a bad experience when you go into organized religion sometimes, and then you say, I don't want to have anything to do with religion. Like I have a friend who says he's an atheist, but he's the most religious person I know because he's such a great guy. He just doesn't like organized religion, right? But he's amazing, right? With spirituality in general, he just doesn't call that, right?
And there was a lot of scandals in the 90s and the early 2000s about a number of preachers who were taking advantage of fragile individuals, getting rich, and basically doing everything opposite to what they preached. And it kind of tainted this whole notion and creates a difficulty we have to overcome to explain the difference between religion and spirituality. Every human being is spiritual, whether they understand it or not. And to your point, atheists, many of the atheists are really rejecting the message that they have gotten, not just from organized religion, but from traditional theological thought about God and about the purpose that we're here and what God wants from us. And they reject it because it's not logical, it doesn't make sense. So often they say, we hear often, there can't be a God, because if the God existed, he would not have made little children suffer. They would not have the poverty and the wars that we have.
Chosen people.
Yeah, and Spiritism has an answer for those things that is reasonable, that's logical, and that's the kind of the push that we try to pull into the locals.
Yeah. And I think always it's not funny, but I use that expression, right? It's funny because sometimes I'm walking around in San Diego and there's these booths of like atheists that set up their booths, just like the Buddhists and in the little park that I go to, Balboa Park. And I think it's great because first of all, I love that. I always like to stop to talk to folks. But I think it's great because sometimes I don't think we understand or realize that some atheists are just like religion, but with a different message, right? They also believe in something, and they are trying to preach the word out. The only thing is that their message is slightly different, right? Because ultimately, if you really want to be difficult about it, you cannot convincingly, for some people, prove that there is a God, but you can also not disprove convincingly that there isn't one. So you end up being this great space. Like if you really want to be difficult, right? Like we landed on the moon, and there are people still today that think that never happened, right? And so you
how
can
can
argue.
you be sure?
Exactly, right? That's my point. Like we don't know, right? Whatever way you fall on this, you can be satisfied and convinced that you're right. So it's really an individual thing. But I find fascinating that, and I like what you said about providing a rational and meaningful way of looking at things, because I think that's what Spiritism brings to us as the world in general, is this ability to say, hey, yes, science and rationality and reason are very important, and so is this ethical part of things. So let's go ahead and continue to develop our understanding, just like our understanding about science has developed over time. Our understanding about God and spirituality has to also advance with time. Let's bring those together because ultimately they're one and the same, right? They're just different sides of the argument. And I think that's what makes it so fantastic for me. But I'll get off my soapbox and ask you guys, we're almost reaching the end of our Spiritist conversations, and I know that we have the symposium celebrating Day So Special, right? 6 years of the Toronto Spiritist Society. What is our topic? What are we going to see in that event on Sunday?
Celebrating life. That's what we wanted. We're going to be talking about...
this priceless gift.
It is. Life is a priceless gift. So, Joe, you want to talk about? Maybe I should ask each one of you to be saying what you're going to be talking about.
Maybe we should make another conversations after the event. We can tell you about what is that we
with
talked about.
Andreia. Andreia is going
Well,
to open the event.
I'm going to open up the event with the topic A Spirit's Journey Before, During, and After Conception.
What? Are you saying that there are spirits before we are born?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
I see alive people. It's, well, we're gonna have some polemic topics within that one, which talks about issues such as abortions and things like that. So, should be an interesting event. Mm-hmm. We hope to do our best.
There's no hope.
I know.
Do or do not. Great.
And then it's gonna be
You.
The second
you.
speaker is going to be you.
That's right.
You better clean me up if I mess up.
We have a running joke here. It's always great to go after or before somebody else, because whoever goes after you has to have that charitable, love to make sure that they fix all the things that you say that are not correct.
High five.
High five. Yeah. They got to help each other out. I have a chance to talk about suicide and how suicide is really not the end. I'm going to take a slightly different slant and not just necessarily talk about suicide, but I'm talking about suffering in general, because I think that suicide is a byproduct of suffering, right? I don't think people think about suicide, they just want to escape something. So we're going to talk a little bit about from a spiritist and spiritual perspective of what suffering is, and see if we can kind of tie that back to suicide, which is a very big problem for us in our society today, I think. We're losing too many people to suicide. And then after, we're going to have Joe come in and fix everything that I say wrong.
Well, I want to fix lunch, because I come after lunch, which is the toughest spot, because everybody's going to be kind of sleepy. And I want to be talking about assisted dying. It's a very pertinent topic in Canada because our parliament has just approved a law that makes it legal for doctors to help people to die, and is a continuation of your lecture around suicide. And often the difference now is that in suicide tends to be more of a lonely decision. Person decides and executes, and then we know as spiritists they're going to have to deal with this in many lives after that. By putting in the assisted dying, or we like to call assisted suicide, whether it's done by a doctor, which is what the legislation is doing, or by a family member or somebody else, with the kind of veneer of being charitable, to try to eliminate the suffering of the individual, what we're doing is we're creating a collective debt around everyone who now gets involved with that act. So it's no longer an individual suicide, it's a collective act of suicide. And this has very significant implications for all of those involved at that moment.
That's going to be interesting. That's a great conversation for us to have after the fact, because it's so many ways we can think about this, and so many contextual information that we should share to inform our decision when it comes to that, right? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, what do we have?
Marcello.
Well, at the end of the day, we're going to have the final lecture, that it's going to be Life, a Priceless Gift. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm a little bit anxious because being the last one of these wonderful speakers, it's a great responsibility. And,
who are these wonderful speakers?
I don't know
you're
what
speaking
you're
of?
talking
They
about.
must be coming later.
Have you guys invited anyone else?
Oh, that's
Well, I
the
like the
way.
way the senator was announcing this. It says, we have 3 great speakers from the U.S. and Joe.
It's true. It's so true. That's what I wrote. That's what I wrote.
And Joe, just like that?
Just like 3 great speakers and then Joe.
Oh my God.
Nobody's a saint in their own
Poor
lands,
baby, my poor baby.
And, well, life is, in fact, indeed, is a priceless gift. And I'm going to try to bring some aspects that maybe Joanna De Angelis maybe many other spirits and other thinkers that brought how life is important for us. We have the tendency to make this analysis as very materialistic way of looking things, but life it's so precious. It's a gift. Well, I don't have like the lecture ready in my mind. I'm gonna sit down and reflect, because it is indeed a priceless gift, and I hope we have the help of the good spirits. And you guys are gonna have to pray a lot, because no one's gonna fix whatever I said wrong. That's gonna be the last one, and I'll ask Jesus to help us out, because this is actually, even though it looks like a very small event, I think it's not going to be a small event. It's going to be a different dimension at the other realm of life. And I wish that we can succeed, giving us our little contribution, even though it's very small, but being part of something so big, which is love that the Creator gives in abundance to all of us. That's my end of the speech.
That's right. And
Did you record that so he can actually repeat this on Sunday?
I will play it back. Do you want me to play it back? I got your voice
It's
here.
beautiful. You see, that's why we needed your influence.
And we chose this topic, Danielle, because we wanted a theme that was inspirational, uplifting, but also that allow us to go deep into some fundamental ideologies that come with Spiritism, some fundamental principles around our existence and the consequences of our acts.
I think that's great, right? Because it's very relevant as well to all of us. Because I think we are all struggling to find meaning in our lives, in our society, and we are seeing great acts of terror nowadays. And it could be very daunting and very saddening if all we see is the material aspect of things. We need to bring this spiritual perspective to understand why things happen this way, or what is it that this can teach us. And that in itself is a great conversation, because if we only see with this material eyes, then we think very differently than otherwise we should probably think as immortal beings that we are, right? We always say, folks have said, like C.S. Lewis, that we are spirits who have a body. We're not a body who has a spirit. There's a fundamental shift in our thinking when we understand that and think differently. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to have a chance to be here in Canada with our friends from not only Canada and Toronto, but also from Florida. And we are reaching the end of our Spirits Conversation. We're very thankful to our hosts, Joe and Sandra, who are not only inviting us, but actually hosting us here too, and they've had the patience to stay with us and feed us today, which was wonderful. And they so graciously allowed us to use their house here as our recording studio, and to have these conversations, which are moments that we cherish when we come together, because I think part of the experience that sometimes you might see in the Spiritist meetings is being with the people afterwards. There is a talking about the message, there's obviously being enlightened and thinking and reflecting, but there is a coming together, enjoying each other's company and listening and hearing and learning from each other, because everybody has something to teach us. So we are very grateful for all of you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for you if you're listening to us as well. And we want you to join the conversation. So please get in touch. Let us know if this is something that you want to do, and hopefully you'll listen to us again. So thanks everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.